Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. I'm just going to give it one more minute for others to join, and then we'll get started. All right, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Madison, and I'm an implementation manager here at Lattice. And I'm going to take you through this What's New in Q2 webinar. So obviously, as you all have likely seen, we've released a lot of product updates over the last few months, and I wanted to highlight what some of those are. So the agenda for this webinar is to talk about those product updates, and then we'll walk through the Q3 roadmap, and towards the end, we'll have time for a Q&A. So what happened in Q2? Lots of things happened. This is a quick overview, and we'll actually dive into these. So one overall announcement that we did make is that we partnered with Slack. So I'm sure, as you all have seen, we have a great integration with Slack already where you can sync your goal updates and your updates. And we are building out that partnership with Slack so that we can move, hopefully, all of our tools into Slack, which we started with our feedback tool. You can now use that in its entirety from Slack. So we're continuing to deepen our integration, and we'll be sure to update everyone as we make progress. In regards to people, we did ship one change here, which you all likely saw. It's just a little navigation change. So the settings is now, the settings section is under people rather than on the bottom of this page. So if you're setting up an integration or you're trying to change some of those settings, you can now find that settings here. In regards to goals, this was our focus last quarter, so we have made a lot of changes in regards to goals, and I'm going to walk you through those right now. The first change that we made is just in terms of an auditing view. So if you're an admin and you want to see what everyone is working on within your company, you can go to the admin panel and click on goals here. And you've probably noticed that there are quite a few changes here. It has a bit of a different feel. So you can click on a goal and it will pop it up on the right-hand side. And then you can dive into that goal even further if you want to. Also on this page, we've changed this goals export. So we've made two large changes here. The first is that you can actually filter. For example, this is looking at individual goals that are on track, and you can export this to a CSV. So this is one exciting change that we've made. The second change we've made is actually to the export itself. So we now include the created date of the goal to help provide more visibility around goal creation, goal updates, and goal end dates. So if we click into this, I'll just show you that you can change these filters and really hone in on a specific priority or status or tags, and then export this information. In addition to this, we've added this new Explore page, which gives managers a different view for goals. So from the Your Team tab, managers now have a goals section, which takes them to an Explore page to see what their team is working on. Notifications when it comes to goals. When you create a goal, if you add another owner to that goal, someone who's helping work towards that goal with you, they will now receive an email, which we see on the right-hand side here. In addition to this, if you're going in to edit a goal and you want to add someone else as an owner, they will also receive an email. So the goal here is to help ensure that everyone knows what they're working on. So if you've been added as an owner, you will know that you have been added and you'll need to start updating that goal. Another huge change that you all likely saw was we released this ability for you to set cascading goals. Cascading goals is that explicit alignment and linking between goals, which we see here. So when I create a goal, I can align it to a parent goal. This is totally optional. If you're interested in cascading goals, you can reach out to our support team and we can turn it on for you. With that being said, we still do offer the same goal setting process that you've seen up to this point. So if you are not interested in a more heavier goal setting process, which is this cascading goals, then you can continue to use our normal goals tool. It's a little bit more lightweight. If you haven't used cascading goals before, then it may be a little bit easier and less overwhelming. But if you do want to start linking goals and having this explicit alignment, we can turn that on for you and you can use that here. So just to show you what that looks like, when I go into create a goal, there isn't too much that has changed here, but this section, align to a parent goal. So I can use this right-hand explore panel to look for the goal that I want to align with. For example, this goal is to grow the engineering team. And maybe my goal is to interview 20 candidates for engineering. I can actually align my goal to that goal. So it creates these links of goals that are all interconnected. It's a little bit of a heavier process, but if you're interested in cascading, we now support that, which is exciting. In addition to this, we've changed the goal explorer. So if you do use cascading, then you'll notice that you can view how goals are connected to one another in a few different ways. So let's go ahead and dive into this new goal explorer. And here we're looking at all of the active goals within the company. There's a few different places that you can go to get to this. For example, you can go from the company page or the You page. It's very easy to access this explore page, but the first view you'll see is a list view. So this is what you'll see if you have more of our lightweight goal setting tool. This is a list of all of the goals within the company. If you use cascading, you do have these two extra views as well. So the first is a cascade view to see how goals are connected to one another. And my favorite is this tree view. So it shows the big picture goals on the left-hand side, and then you can see what cascades into those here. And if there were more goals, I could just keep clicking on these arrows and view all of my cascaded goals in one place. So it's a really neat Explorer page. Another change that you may have noticed is that when you are ending a goal, when you're done working on it, you can now end it in two different ways. You can mark it as complete, which means that you made a satisfactory level of progress. Maybe you achieved 100% or over 100%. But you can also mark a goal as incomplete, which means that you're done working on it, but you may not have achieved that goal to the extent that you wanted to. So we now do offer those two different options. And you can see that when you click into a goal, you can click options and end a goal. And for example, if I mark it as complete, it will actually stamp this goal as completed. So it lets my manager know that I completed this goal. I achieved 100% possibly, or over 100%. As an admin, the goal here for us is to give you more visibility to see how goals are progressing and maybe what the progress is once it's ended. In terms of visuals, you'll likely notice that the goal experience has changed a bit. So when you click into a goal, we have new icons to see how progress is measured. You can also see a type of goal. So we've refreshed the profiles a bit here. And then lastly, a huge change that we made was that we released goal cycles. So for many admins up until this point, and for our company included, when we go through goal setting, we would be told, okay, please go in and set goals for the next quarter. And we may have received an email, we may have been told just face-to-face with our manager. But from the admin perspective, there really wasn't a way to structure this goal setting process. With goal cycles, you can provide a bit more of a structure here. So it's kind of similar to a review cycle where you can start with specific levels. For example, a company level goal setting is going to be from June to July, and then we're going to focus on department goal setting. So it allows you to set up stages to goal setting, and it gives you more visibility into how these goals are being set. So to dive into this, to give you a bit more clarity, if we click into goal cycles here, we can create a new one, and you can really customize this goal setting structure for your team. You can create emails, you can turn off specific levels of goal setting, and then you'll also have this visibility to see how goals were set for this quarter, for example. Of course, if you're interested in this further, we do have some great articles in the Help Center which show how to set this up in further detail. In regards to feedback, one change that we did make was the ability to configure feedback options. So if we go into the feedback sections here, feedback settings, which we see here, you can actually check the box on and off for different feedback types. So if you wanted to start with public feedback, for example, you could definitely do so, and then expand on these feedback types as you create more of a feedback culture. So it's completely up to you, but we do offer a little bit more flexibility here. In regards to manager tools, Q1 of 2019, we did focus on one-on-ones, so we haven't shipped too many changes in regards to that. One change we did make is something you've likely seen if you use updates, and that's just this sentiment score here. So our design team created these beautiful smiley faces. So rather than saying how you're feeling on a scale of 1 to 5, we've changed this sentiment score a bit. Lastly, in regards to reviews, we are always shipping changes and building out reviews. So we did make many, many changes last quarter. The first change that we made is in customizing the timeline. So if you use a reviews tool, you will know that you can change the sequence. You can set something up on an automated timeline, which takes the weight off of your shoulders a bit as an admin, saying that peer selection will start on May 8th and it will end on May 15th. You could also go a more manual route and set up a custom timeline, which gives you a bit more flexibility, but you do have to manually go into the system and begin and end each phase. So one change that we made is in regards to this automated timeline. Now what you can do is really customize when each phase starts and ends. You can choose a time which follows your time zone. So hopefully this gives you a bit more flexibility as you set up review cycles. In addition to this, we've launched this ability for you to be able to begin the peer selection phase with or without a notification. So if you are an admin that likes to choose peers for everyone, then you can actually launch this phase without a notification, so no one will know what's going on, and you can select peers for everyone. Another change that we made was we built this ability to decline peer review requests. When you're setting up a review cycle, you will see this option here, allow employees to decline writing an approved peer review. And what this means is that when I go into the system and I'm writing all of my reviews, I'm set to review Bodhi. And maybe I feel like I don't know Bodhi well enough to review him. What this option gives me is the ability to decline writing this peer review. So when I decline writing this peer review, it does let Bodhi's manager know. I can also change my mind and write a review for him later on if I want to. So this is a setting that will help limit the amount of reviews people have to write and hopefully make people feel a bit more comfortable so they don't have to write a peer review about someone if they don't want to. Another great change we made was this ability to write reviews during peer selection. So this is another setting that you can turn on and off when you set up the review cycle. But essentially what it does is when I'm asked to go in and nominate my peers, I can nominate my peers, submit my nominations, and I can actually click into this Write Reviews tab here and start drafting my self-review, drafting my review about my direct reports potentially or my manager. I won't be able to submit my review, but I can start writing these thoughts, and they do autosave. So hopefully this helps limit the amount of time that your review cycle does take because users are starting to see these questions and can start drafting their responses very early on in the process. Another huge change that we've made and we're continuing to build upon is the ability to edit launched review cycles. So you may have remembered that if you chose to share all of the reviews and have it be a very transparent cycle and you changed your mind, you would have to reach out to our support team. And of course, we're happy to make those changes, but now we've given you the power to make some changes on your end. So if you want to change settings, if you want to change those deliverable settings, for example, then you can do so at any time. And the way that you would do this is just by clicking into that cycle, clicking on the settings here, and you'll see that there are many changes that you can make. For example, you can toggle some things on and off, you can change the deliverables section. And what we're building out here currently is the ability to change questions as the review cycle is live as well. So lots of exciting changes happening here to give you back the power as the admin, so that way when you do launch a cycle, you can make some changes in case you change your mind. In regards to review exports, we've added a few new exports, which I did discuss in the last webinar, but it gives you more insight as an admin to see how this progress is being made. So you can export to see how reviewers' progress is, or reviewees, the person being reviewed, how many reviews they've received. So while you do have this auditing section here, you can export these to really hone in on who you're waiting for. So if we click into a review cycle here, we'll find these results that we can export on the right-hand side. If you're in the share phase, so if your review cycle has ended, you can also export reviewees sharing progress. And it's one of my favorite exports because it really shows you on what day a manager shared a review packet and even what day an employee signed off on a review packet. So you can export all of this really quickly to see what managers you need to reach out to, or what managers you need to congratulate for sharing the packets and having those conversations early on. The last huge change that we made is in regards to review cycle analytics. And I won't discuss this in too much detail because we did have a full webinar on it, which you can find in our Help Center. But with review cycle analytics, it gives you more insight as an admin to really hone in on how departments are performing, how managers are rating their employees. And if we click into a review cycle, if you have scores or rating questions, then you can actually view these in a bar graph view or a 9-box view or a heat map view, and you can change how you're grouping all of this information. So now changing gears a bit, I did want to discuss the Q3 product roadmap to give you a bit more insight in what we're working on right now. So first, in regards to our engagement suite, which many of you are likely familiar with, we are working on 2 things. The first is pulse surveys. So right now we do have engagement surveys, but they're a little bit heavier. They're not run likely every 2 weeks or so, maybe every quarter. But what we are rolling out is pulse surveys. So these mini surveys for you to help identify trends, focus areas, and then hopefully make better people decisions from this data. We're also working on benchmarking, which we're planning on publishing this quarter. So that way you can see how your team is performing and how engaged they are compared to all Lattice customers. In regards to our performance management tools, which we discussed today, we're working on 3 key things. The first is conversational feedback. So when you give feedback in the system today, you will notice that you cannot respond to it. And we really recognize that feedback starts a 2-way conversation. And we want to give people the ability to respond to private feedback, to respond to public feedback, and celebrate publicly with others who are being praised. So that's something we are working on. We're also continuing to invest in goals. And really what that needs is your continuous feedback. So feel free to reach out to support at any time if you have something that you want to see with goals. That feedback helps us continue to better support you. And then lastly, we've committed to rolling out this Outlook calendar integration by the end of this quarter. So that will allow you to set up one-on-ones using your calendar, using your Outlook calendar. So hopefully that makes one-on-ones a bit easier to manage, and it's something that we are continuing to work on and having committed to roll out in the next few weeks, or excuse me, few months over Q3. So now I'd love to open it up for a Q&A, and I see that I already have 2 questions in here, which I will answer. But if you have any other questions, feel free to use the chat box or Q&A box, and I will answer those. So the first question is, are these updates being updated in articles or video tutorials in Help Center? So in regards to all of these updates that I spoke through today, we do have an awesome customer care team that continues to update and manage the Help Center. So we do update these articles and create new articles as these new functionalities are released. Another question was, how do you get to the review analytics again? So the way that you get to this is, let's see if we can backtrack here a little bit, is by clicking into a review cycle, which will take you to this manage page. And if you click on results in that review cycle, you'll get to the review analytics page. And keep in mind, you will only be able to use review analytics if you use rating style questions or scored attributes. So you can choose whatever questions you want and then group that data here. Another question I just received is regarding cascading goals. Is that a feature we enable on an individual basis, or would we have to enable it for the entire company? That's a great question. So it is enabled for the entire company. And what that means is that when users go into the system to create a goal, they will see that box to align to a parent goal. And they don't have to use this. They can definitely create more lightweight goals and not align with parent goals. But if you turn on cascading goals, then everyone will have access to create cascading goals if they want to. For those who do not use Outlook, are there other calendar, specifically Gmail integrations planned? So we do have a Google integration right now. That's the one integration that we do support with one-on-ones. So if you are setting up a one-on-one, you can connect to your Google Calendar. This has been released since the beginning of Q1 this year, but we want to roll out that Outlook integration now for the other users that use that. Another question from Molly, when are pulse surveys being rolled out? So that is set to be rolled out this quarter. I don't have a specific date I can offer right now, but I can promise that I've seen how much it's grown and it looks beautiful, and we're really excited to roll things out. All right. Another question I just received is the team working on a way to export the org chart into PDF form? That's a really great question. I can't provide an answer for that right now because I do not know, but I will definitely pass that feedback along to our team. What we've committed to so far are those big picture things that we just went through, and I'm not quite sure what our other projects are at this time, but I will be sure to pass that along. Awesome. These have been great questions, and we do have a few minutes left. So are there any other questions that anyone wants me to answer right now? Okay, another question. What about being able to show more than one manager in the org chart? Once again, those are more of the smaller projects outside of the scope that I just mentioned, so I'm not aware at this time. Another question is, can I set up an employee to have 2 managers? If not, can I have them reviewed by 2 people? So the answer to both of those questions is yes. You can set up an employee so that way they have a direct manager and a dotted line manager. If you are interested in setting this up, then I recommend looking in our help center and searching dotted line manager. You'll find a step-by-step guide showing how to set this up. And then in addition to this, you can make changes to reviews and who is reviewing who at any time. So you can add additional manager reviewers, additional peer reviewers, direct report reviewers. That's a change that you can make at any time, and we have guides for that in our help center as well. Okay, another question. Can employees be part of more than one department? Say administration and the department they lead. So right now, employees do need to be members of only one department. You can certainly set up sub-departments using a custom field if you want to, but if someone leads 2 departments, they can be department heads for both of those. So that may be a good workaround for now, is setting that lead as a department head for administration and the department that they lead. And that doesn't affect the org chart. Anyone who is listed in a department, while they may not be listed in both of their departments, this doesn't affect permissions, it doesn't affect the org chart, but it is visible to others. All right, and I have time for one more question. If there is one, feel free to send it my way. Any other questions as we come to the end of this webinar? All right, well, if you do have any questions after this webinar, or you want to give feedback, feel free to reach out to our support team, and we are more than happy to help. Thanks for joining.